I've got to thank Simeon for one of my favorite intros ever. I feel like my job's done. I can just go home now. I think we've covered the subject, but I am a Tottenham boy, and it's fantastic to be here. I thought this is an organic experience. I'm hoping these 3D letters were made here. I'm hoping this red circle was bought from IKEA, just down the road. But we're here, and let me get to the point of why I'm here. I'm about to tell you a tale about tables and chairs, which is a curious thing, because I don't make either. But somehow they became a central part of the story I'm about to share. My name is Alain Clapham, and a lot of people in the hip-hop circles know me as Fusion. I'm a child of Tottenham, and it's a blessing to be here, but my career has taken me around the world. And as an educator, it's taken me around the country. And as I traveled around, one question stayed with me. With so many creative people that I engaged with, could I find a place where creativity was the currency? The fact that you didn't need money, all you had to do was be yourself and use those skills. So that was the question I had. And the story begins here. This is Fox Court, Chancery Lane, a place of big business, a financial thoroughfare, and a very strange place to find myself beginning this adventure. I was given a key to a space in that building by a lady by the name of Mari, who worked for a charity, and she understood that we wanted a space for creative play, just for 5 weeks, and we'll be granted that opportunity. Now, that moment, I thought, this is taking me back to another place. It took me back to my childhood. And in my childhood, I had this vision, because I've always been this way. I call myself a creative alchemist. I'm more like a creative mischief maker. And at the age of 7, my parents, my mum being from the Philippines, my dad being from the West Indies, had one golden rule which they shared. I don't know if you relate to this. You could play, but you couldn't stay around anybody's house overnight. No sleepovers for me. Put your hand up if you had that no sleepover rule. Okay, I feel like I'm not alone, but all my friends could do it. So as a kid who's 7 years old, I love space, I love play. But the final frontier was my front door. I couldn't go any further, so I went into inner space. And I put a proposition together to my mum, and it simply went like this. Could I take the house over for 1 day, each and every room, and create a space for play and creativity? And the beautiful thing is, she said yes. And the Star Wars Club was born. And in each and every room, I would have the games of our choice. Connect 4. Love Connect 4, right? We would have a pool table downstairs, which my dad had purchased. We would have computer football games. But the point is, my friends could come and play all day Saturday till their parents picked them up. Nice guy, right? I charged them all 20 pence entry to get into the house. Now, I know what you're thinking. I'm trying to get rich or die crying, but I'm not a hustler. The intention was simply this. I love my mum so much, and she always provided. And I thought, could I not give her a break? Could my club not be self-sufficient? Because we need this stuff. Because it's a party, and we all want wagon wheels, hula hoops, skips, dib-dabs, you know the rest. So this was the club. And I had to ask my mum, because she told me I ran it for 2 years. And I guess it stayed inside me, because as I returned to this mission as a grown man, I had a building to have this club again. Of course, I couldn't call it Star Wars Club. So we called it Inspiration, a new word for a new movement. And the idea was creativity could be a currency. And I felt like I had a second rub of the genie's lamp. And I was thinking, what is it that I would wish for? And the simple wish was space, obviously. But I didn't reckon I would get 12,000 square foot of space. Remarkable. But what am I going to do with all this space? Because I hadn't asked for anything else. So my starter kit was simply a few tables and a few chairs. Not the most impressive start for people who are used to having printers, computers, speakers, fancy lights, projectors, you know the rest. So I had to embark on some kind of mission to build this creative hub and find a currency to do it. I was doing okay. My business was growing, but we couldn't afford to run the hub off that finance alone. So the business I'm in is the creative sector, And 77% of the people working in that sector were either freelancers or they worked at small companies. What that really looks like is people turning their living room into their office. It's people populating coffee shops that have the internet and they get overcharged on the coffee. It was people working in small offices in different regions. But we rarely ever saw each other unless we were going to actually do something. So I thought, if I can bring everyone together in a central space, maybe a currency can develop from that experience. And here are just a few of my friends. Some of the students who graduate to work for my company, they're the younger ones. And the rest, painters, photographers, dancers, architects, filmmakers. And we gathered to embark on this 5-week crusade. And we stood together until it was time to fight for tables and chairs, because there were never enough. And that was inspiration, a kind of creative collage and just an attempt to buck the system and try something different. Tables and chairs. They became office spaces for jewelry designers and for people who were interested in just socializing. As the image says, there's a picture of somebody playing chess. We were having fun and we were creating and growing business ideas. We were working in music, so we took analog and digital technology and we created a thing called DJing, which was just musical play, and anyone could participate, musician or not. This is Chris Tullock. He stands at least 6'5", and he draws about the same size. He needed a lot of tables. And we had a cinema club. It was called Pop-Up Projector. You might relate. You know when you go to the cinema and the film ends, we've had a shared experience and everyone just goes home without a word exchanged. Our club, we had conversations with actors, directors, and writers who shared their stories. And the food. We progressed from dib-dabs. Now we're looking for another rush, an organic high, healthy food as sourced by one of the creatives who was involved in organic food making. And this is Sarah Shamsavari, another creative, an Iranian photographer and artist who gave talks, much like the talks we've heard and enjoyed today, but this was an art inspiration space. And of course, no office is complete without a notice board. This was like our chalky Twitter. It's just a means to register those who burnt the midnight oil and worked all night, and those who rose with the sun and came and put the early shift. We were open 24/7. I hardly ever saw my home. But it just sounds like a creative hub with long opening hours. We were looking for magic, and the magic came just toward the end with these guys. The House Gospel Choir. They were a small collective gathering momentum, but didn't have much social media traction. And they would come every Monday to use the space for free for rehearsals. And week by week, we all fell in love with them. And the filmmakers said, we can make a film for them. And Dorothy, who was a director, said, I'd like to direct that film. Blingware, who was our graffiti artist, decided that he would do backdrops. And then Chris would design the flyers for their gig that would be happening down at the Ace Hotel. And by the end of this experience, they sold out the Ace Hotel with the flyers we designed. We'd done workshops, we'd made friendships, and we created something much bigger than ourselves. This creative currency was working. So in conclusion, I would say that if you build it, they will come. But they'll also go when they've had enough. I clearly enjoy the roller coaster ride, and some of them, at the first opportunity, climbed off. But that's fair play. You'd also say that creativity, plus having time, 5 weeks, and a bit of space, gave birth to this currency, and it did have some kind of value, we just couldn't quantify it. And also, a small financial contribution would create stakeholders. It was no longer 20p, but people had to invest something, because this wasn't a free experience. But that little something would make them feel they were part of the whole thing. For most people, that would be enough. Move on, go back to your regular life, earning money, 9 to 5. But I'm not regular. I wanted to do it again. And after a couple of months, the opportunity came to go back to the same space. And that's what we did. But this time, the story was about agility. It was about building things. And our intention was to get people who would put stuff there so they wouldn't leave. So we invited people who would build TV studios. These guys are building a set for performance. We built a library. We built workshop areas. And we created this space, which is more like a home for our creativity. And these are some of the promoters who put on a sold-out gig in the space, again, working together. The graffiti artists became more ambitious and created these canvases made of cling film to celebrate the enjoyment of using a creative space. And then young people. As an educator, we invited them in to use this as their classroom, a classroom in the real world. But you can see from the image, there's still a distinct lack of tables and chairs. We had to solve the problem, and the solution came like this. Ian, who ran Tribe TV, decided he could use his van license to hire a van. Roxanne, who ran Crazivity, was an artist who would go online and look at Gumtree and look at FreeCycle to see where we could find skips in the local area where we could salvage stuff we could use. And a movement called Take a Seat Designs was born. We went out one night and trawled through skips all across South London. And I wasn't quite sure if this made sense, but we were passionate enough to try it. And we pulled out shower rails, we pulled out breeze blocks, we pulled out anything we thought we could use. And by the end of the night, we brought it back, and we discovered one simple thing. If you took a door and you flipped it and put 2 trestles underneath, you would create your own table. And it was great to see the creators come back in there thinking, we're really building something now. And we were moving forwards. One of the last events we did in the space was with a group called Civic Wires, and we gave them the space to have their first meeting to explore how they could improve the community. And when they left, we had some tidying up to do, always, glasses of wine, bits of cheese. But they left something on the wall, and it was really like a positive omen. And it read simply, "Never doubt that a small, thoughtful group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." How's that for serendipity? The sign was there. We had to continue. And this was the team of people that were dedicated to changing the world. Again, there was a drawback. This wasn't our world. We were temporarily there. So when we received an email cutting short our stay to 48 hours, you can see the problem. Trestles, doors, library, recording studio, performance space, workshop, some random tires. We had to get all of that out in 48 hours. As you can see, Yellow Storage were massive beneficiaries of our lack of foresight. So in conclusion, if they build it, they will come. They were going to stay because they had their equipment there. And they'll stay until they get kicked out. Creativity, time, space, and partnership made this X factor even stronger and more powerful. And then creative currency increases when you have reliable generators. And that would be Roxanne, that would be Ian, that would be Maria. People who weren't just there for the ride, they were building the ride, and they were committed. And I became we, and that was the movement. But would I go back? What do you think? The answer is yes. So we came back one last time, but this time it was get in and get out. Agility, bringing communities together. So we had Barclaycard come in and deliver sessions on financial literacy to young people. We built a quick studio where we had Rodney P, a legend in UK hip-hop, and he created a documentary using the space. This awesome image is really just the piece of work of a collaboration between Agenda and a guy called Boy Wonder, and it was the Lego Warriors, and we shot this in the space, and it's been exhibited around the country. And it was summertime, perfect time to have a garden party, and that's exactly what we did. But this lady was the game changer, Ayana Witter-Johnson, a singer, songwriter, and cellist, and this is her partner in crime, Rubin. And we were able to use all our collective skills to create a crowdfunding campaign to help her raise funds to launch her album. And we had the launch of the campaign in the space on our very last day. And it was a sold-out affair with people from across the creative industries, this time the South Bank and various institutions. And people even flew in just for the day, not to see us, but they spent the night with us, and that meant the world to us. And it all happened in the gallery we built just for the night. So in conclusion, inspiration is more than a place, it's a way of seeing the world, and the world seeing you. Creativity, time, space, and partnerships, plus community, increases that X factor. And creative currency is about putting a spark back in your soul. No, I'm not a secret millionaire. I'm working all the way through this whole process. But I realize there's something of greater value, something that's moving me beyond working with big brands and global companies. This is what I'm here to do. So in the TED theme about thinking beyond, we took it beyond. And we created spaces with rising tide, turning an old rehearsal space into a space of light, art, and culture. We went into youth centres and we took tires and we reimagined them to create something beautiful with young people. And we created a hub in Walthamstow with Sasha Cochran from the Big Creative Academy. And this is where there is art, light, table doors, and also these people. Young creatives, our new inspirationists, 16 to 19. And inside this space, they're allowed to dream and plan and take stock of the fact that the world is changing. As long as big corporations continue to make a killing and everyday people strive to make a living and get educated, we're going to have a problem. And these young people can be the problem solvers. And our responsibility is to be the helpers, providing the tools so they can be the architects of their own future. And that is what I'd like to leave you with, to think beyond, because they are the ones who are going to counter this new reality. And I think creative currency has a serious part to play, and inspiration will be there to play its part, and I would love to bring that back home to Tottenham. I mentioned tables and chairs, one of my favorites. We got that one night, but I feel we might have inadvertently stolen it off the street. It might have belonged to somebody, but in our efforts to just reclaim and reimagine, we painted it, and it has eyes, it has a nose, and it has a lip just on the base, and the artist decided to call it Kiss My Ass. And just finally, in closing, I'd like to leave you all with a simple thought. Yes, we need so many things, and society markets so much stuff to us, and young people striving for degrees and apprenticeships and all the things they feel they need. But all you are is all you need if you surround yourself with people who believe. Thank you.